What's up guys, Freddy Fishfinger here, and I'm bringing you the team builder video for the VGC International Challenge team that I used. The battles are all said and done now, but in any case I thought I'd upload this video in case you guys want some ideas or the particular team itself to see how I've really run this so that you can make assessments for yourself and see if you want to run the particular spreads or sets or moves, or even if it just gives you a point to start. So I'll go through the individual components of each Pokemon that I've chosen and the reasons why, but also run through the set and how I built the team overall. Okay, so first up, the first choice was Tapu Bulu, and this is because I wanted to run a Tapu Bulu and Milotic idea in unison. Milotic, obviously, after getting a Grassy Seed boost, increases its defense, and it becomes very difficult to kill. I've experienced a couple of battles whereby I haven't been able to kill my opponent's Milotic, and because of that, I've really wanted to abuse a set whereby I build a Milotic that's quite difficult to kill while it keeps providing some offense for my side of the field rather than my opponent. Really try to capitalize on Milotic's versatility. So of course to do that I try to increase its defense, and that's why we get Tapu Bulu. Milotic was the second pick, Tapu Bulu was the first. So what I wanted to do was build a Tapu Bulu that wasn't just built to stay around, but was to provide offense, hence why I've gone for the huge investment in attack. In fact, I've maxed it out and provided an adamant nature as well. I was considering at one point to go Choice Scarf, but the problem that I had was typically if my opponent ran a Choice Scarf Garchomp, Poison Jab, Slap, and Tapu Bulu was dead, which was really frustrating. And taking the Choice Scarf off of Tapu Bulu did mean that I lost the speed that was really nice, but it meant that I had the ability to protect whenever I wanted to, rather than having to swap out in order to keep Tapu Bulu. On top of that, I still had the issue with Garchomp being able to Poison Jab and kill, but I didn't want to use my Focus Sash just for Tapu Bulu there, because Tapu Bulu is bulky enough in general outside of having to take a poison type attack. So while Muck is also an issue, it was more Garchomp poison jabbing, which was really frustrating me. But for that reason, I've opted for a Kebia Berry. You are able to live poison jabs from any variant of Garchomp, and Garchomp is not likely to be running Poisonium Z when opting for Poison Jab, because it's generally able to do enough damage just by having Poison Jab, and it wants to free up slots to do other things. So generally speaking, this enabled me to go for a Horn Leech and be able to do something around 60% damage to a Garchomp, recover a fair bit of my health with Horn Leech, or if I really needed the kill, I could opt for Wood Hammer. But of course, once you factor in Recoil and then Rough Skin, as well as taking the Poison Jab from the Garchomp, you'd likely go down. So that's why I've opted for both Horn Leech and Wood Hammer, because again, Tapu Bulu is able to use both effectively. And on top of that, it doesn't have many other options. So that's why I've opted for those two, Protect, and then the last choice was Superpower. Just gives you a couple of nice kills. In regards to the EV spread, max attack to do max damage, and then the speed is nice because it allows you to outspeed 4-speed Milotic and outspeed a max speed Marowak, which means that you can get some hits off if you need to, and you're likely to avoid an Ice Beam from a low-speed Milotic, which is interesting because sometimes you see Milotic is quite commonly used, sometimes you see that it's not used very much. So I do find Milotic interesting in the VGC tier. Okay, moving on. You've heard me speak about it a little bit. Milotic. So I've already spoken about, I've opted for Grassy Seed and the reasons why. The ability choice competitive. There are a couple of other decent choices, but I really wanted to opt for competitive because it means that I do benefit off of my opponent bringing in an Intimidate user, whether that be Arcanine, Gyarados, or possibly Salamence. I know I use Salamence in this team. A lot of opponents don't. A lot of opposition or people that play the tier don't. But it is pretty useful as well. And outside that, Intimidate users are still pretty common. So I thought, let's go for competitive. We can really punish the opponent, whereby he goes for Snarl if he's got a Snarl user, or if he just generally brings in Arcanine. even if that might be unlikely on a Milotic, your opponent can think, okay, maybe I can bring it in and get a wild charge off, do some serious damage, and we do get the boost from that, making Milotic so much more threatening. Then, of course, we've opted for Scald and Ice Beam because that makes Milotic a threat. Ice Beam specifically annoys grass types, while Scald is just the best water type move in the game. And then Protect gives us some versatility, and then Recover in case we get the chance to heal up and Milotic's not going to be doing a lot in any turn, or would appreciate the health more than getting some damage off. So that's the choice there. Now, as for the EV spread, again, it's a little bit interesting. I've chosen the HP defense and special defense investments to be able to live a wild charge from Arcanine, a Psyshock or a Psychic from Tapu Lele, and you can even live a Shattered Psyche from a Tapu Lele outside of Psychic terrain, which is great because that's an insane hit. On top of that, you are able to live a Thunderbolt out from Tapu Koko outside of electric terrain, and you're able to live a Horn Leech once you've got +1 defense from a Tapu Bulu. So there's some really nice so there's a really nice number of things which you can survive which your opponent wouldn't expect you to. With this Milotic set. In addition, you do have enough speed to outspeed 4 speed Crocodile, which did have a small window whereby people were using it. I'm not sure how common it is now, but it also lets you do a little bit of speed creeping. But if you guys want to alter that, feel free, because I think the Crocodile has well and truly dropped in usage now, and I haven't seen Crocodile in a long time in VGC. And by a long time, it sounds like a couple years, but really, I saw it around February and late January, not so much during March, and then haven't seen it at all during April, and I don't see it coming back either. The other thing that you either get to 2-hit KO or KO an Arcanine with Scald. I think at +2, which is in fact +2, you're able to OHKO an Arcanine with Scald, which is pretty handy given that the Arcanine comes in, gets the accidental Intimidate, and then that means you end up being +2 with competitive. And you also get to threaten Garchomps with either Scald if you want to, predict a switch, and then you get a potential burn, so it's kind of the safer play, or you get to just punish with Ice Beam and kill off a Garchomp. Alright, the next pick is Salamence. So Salamence, as I alluded to before, was a slightly different pick. It allows me to avoid any incoming Earthquakes, most likely from a Garchomp from my opponent, while getting the Intimidate off, rather than Arcanine having to come in and cop and Intimidate. It also provides me with a resistance to water, which is really good, because while I do have Tapu Bulu there, the rest of my team starts becoming Mudsdale and Incineroar, and then Milotic, I guess, resists as well, but it does as well to water types as other water types do to it, realistically. And then Metagross doesn't particularly appreciate water types either, so I thought just adding another resistance does help. On top of that, I don't have to worry about running a balloon or any item like that. And the other cool thing about Salamence is, like Arcanine, it can really pack a punch without having to do any sort of setup, which is probably the only drawback of Gyarados. Salamence does... The other thing about Salamence is that you can rock with Draco Meteor, like I have, Fire Blast, like I have, and then, like with most other Pokemon, you can throw in a Protect there, which is really cool. And then I've opted for Fly to get a Wallet Pact from Flyinium Z. I think I tried to say Flyingium or something stupid like that during some of the battle episodes that I've uploaded. But ultimately, this Salamence does really threaten most opponents with its versatility of moves. There's a couple things which it would be scared to see, but it should be able to provide a fair amount of damage to your opponent. And it's not built to last, although it can annoy an opponent because Salamence does not typically survive multiple turns. Therefore, the fact that it does have Protect to survive maybe 1, maybe 2 more turns can really frustrate an opponent and give you a real advantage. Ultimately, max speed I didn't opt for because I just wanted that little bit of extra special attack. but you are able to outspeed everything with sub 100 speed with the speed that we've invested here, meaning Arcanine and stuff like that. Okay, next up is Incineroar. So I was inspired by an opponent that really just dominated me with an Incineroar set that they had. I'm not sure if I built the same set specifically, but I can guarantee that my moveset is quite different, or at least my EV spread is quite different. I've opted for Citrus Berry so that I can survive a little bit longer, which pairs really well with Flare Blitz. I've opted for Fake Out because Fake Out is just good to have from the first turn off, and then Taunt to stop things like Porygon, which can be a little bit annoying, or potentially other Trick Room users, although my team would not be devastated if my opponent does Trick Room, depending on what you've got out at the time, and then of course you finish with Protect. Unfortunately, we have to have Blaze at the moment because Intimidate hasn't been released on Incineroar, but that's okay because Incineroar can still do its job. Then the set specifically, I've opted for a high amount of speed and a high amount of attack with a little trickle of points in HP defense and special defense. The set allows you to live a Moonblast from Tapu Lele, live an Earthquake from Garchomp, keeping in mind that Earthquake does get spread damage, so it's reduced from its original hit. You can live a Scald from a Milotic, and you won't get burnt because you're a Fire type. You can live a Power Gem from a Nilhanego, providing that there's no Life Orb. And then you have a 87.5 chance, so that's over 3 and 4. I think it's more like 5 and 6 chance to one-shot a Metagross with Flare Blitz. You outspeed a Mimikyu in case it doesn't want to opt for Trick Room on the first turn. You will outspeed most forms of Pelipper. And the little bit of special defense investment that we've provided ensures that a Porygon Z and a Porygon 2 can't download a special attack boost if they try to do that. So our fifth choice is Metagross. Metagross is running a Choice Scarf. I alluded to that in my previous team builder video with a different team where you can do that. This one I really wanted to just punish my opponent, not expecting a Choice Scarf Metagross. The only issue that I have with it is the 90% accuracy, which you guys may have seen during some of the episodes. You just can't rely on 90%, unfortunately, and you can get beaten because of it, and that's what happened to me. But that being said, it's still good enough to warrant the selection. This particular set here, it manages to live a all-out pummeling from Pheromosa. It lives a Thunderbolt from Tapu Koko outside of electric terrain, and if I run the calcs again, I think I think inside even it can live actually. Although it's going to take, I think it's going to be like within a range of 10 HP, so you can't live it easily. You can live a Earthquake from Garchomp, and you will live 2 inside grassy terrain, which is really cool. You can 2-hit KO Arcanine with Zen Headbutt, and there's a chance you can 2-hit KO it with Rock Slide, depending on if your opponent goes for something like Burnout, or if I think Burnout's the one where you lose your fire typing, or if there's like a really bulky Arcanine or something like that. Then you can 2-hit KO a Tapu Bulu or a Tapu Koko, and you can one-shot a Tapu Lele. Keeping in mind you do not live a Never-Ending Nightmare from Tapu Lele, although that is not opted for commonly because people like to use a Shattered Psyche Tapu Lele. The other bonus about Metagross is Clear Body, meaning that you're not subject to Intimidates. Then, of course, we go Meteor Mash and Zen Headbutt because high stab moves and we get a lot of threatening damage. Rock Slide's just really good. I don't care what anybody says, it's that good in VGC. And the last slot, I was umming and ahhing and ended up for Brick Break because it does help with Aurora Veil if you get the right timing. And then there's potentially a couple of things which won't like a fighting type attack, which Metagross could throw out. Typically speaking, you're not going to be opting for a Brick Break, but it's there in the event that you might need it. If you guys find something else when you're building your sets that you want to run instead of Brick Break, by all means. It's just I couldn't really decide on something that I'd be using a lot, so I thought, look, for the one event where maybe I use it, I'll have it. And the last choice that I made was Mudsdale, which seems a bit counterintuitive on a team where I'm running grassy terrain, but the decision was made because I was having issues with electric types. And ultimately, Mudsdale doesn't have to opt for a ground type move to be a bit of a problem. So the really cool thing about Mudsdale is the fact that stamina keeps boosting its defense, meaning that it looks like it's going to die, and then all of a sudden it becomes harder and harder and harder to kill. So I thought, why not try abuse that, add an assault vest on it, and all of a sudden Mudsdale is something that looks like it might live 2 hits, when all of a sudden maybe it can live 3, or if you're really lucky 4, depending on what your opponent's got. And then of course you're constantly getting chip damage during that. So even though we don't invest highly in attack, high horsepower Rock Slide, Heavy Slam, Close Combat does give you a nice moveset to be able to annoy a number of things. And obviously we can't opt for tech moves like Protect or anything while you have an Assault Vest, but you can continually get off damage here and there, and sometimes you even just get off kills that you don't realize that you might get. So I think I OHKO'd a Mimikyu with Heavy Slam at one point, and I just wasn't expecting it, but sometimes Mudsdale did surprise me. The set itself, you will live a Tectonic Rage and or a Dragon Claw from a Garchomp. You will live a Leaf Blade from a Kartana. You will outspeed Marowak, unless it's like running high levels of speed. I think it's no, you outspeed 4 speed Marowak, so it's that encompasses people not running any speed and also trying to get that last little EV to matter. That's what that's for. You do live a Scald in Rain from Golduck. You do not live a Hydro Pump from Golduck, though, in the rain. Or, of course, I forget the name of the move, but Warterium Z, whatever that is, you're not going to live that. But at least you live Scald, which is nice. And then you can 2-hit KO Kartana with Close Combat, and people wouldn't be expecting that, which is really cool. And you do OHKO a Tapu Lele with Heavy Slam. I think maybe if the opponent is running a really defensive Tapu Lele, maybe not. But from memory, you should be able to beat most Tapu Leles with Heavy Slam. So it's really cool. Ultimately, the team runs a lot of things which are less common. So Milotic's less common, Tapu Bulu's less common, Salamence is less common, Mudsdale is less common, Incineroar is less common, and then who's the last guy I'm missing out on? I'm going to feel really bad. And then Metagross. Metagross is the most common out of those things because it's really good against the Tapus, but even then, I wouldn't say it's in the top 10 for usage, and if it is, it's just scraping in that top 10. So that's the really cool thing about this team. It's potentially not the best team that you've ever seen, but I give it the thumbs up. You can use it really well, although you do have to really try to play it a couple of times to understand it, because I know there were some times where I came up against certain teams and I was like, I just do not know what to do. And me having built the team meant that potentially there is a case whereby it's not going to beat everything that you see, but it does have the capacity to win a lot. Sometimes I'd get frustrated with this team, but then I'd come back and do better again. So it's quite interesting, and of course, not having standard stuff does make it a bit unique, I would say. But look, feel free to use the team if you would like. I think the team's pretty cool ultimately. Leave likes if you enjoyed. Leave comments if you want any questions asked specifically about this team, and I'll see if I can dig up the information you're looking for or give you the feedback that you're after. And then subscribe for more Pokemon content. You never know what we'll be planning in the future. And Freddy Fishfinger, out.